On the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbal.
Welcome to it. Friday is here. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. Hope you're doing okay. I have lost another steak and beer bet. I break the streak tonight. I hope. Elijah's like, nope. I will have as much ribeye as I damn well please. Hope you do it okay. We'll get into a big recruiting weekend, a monster baseball weekend for the Big Red. And we'll talk about it. Brian Christopherson going to be with us. The Pride of Fairbury, Bill Dolman, also joined us. BC, of course, with Husker 24/7. Bill Dolman, longtime legend in Fairbury and the state of Nebraska. Clausburn has RSVP'd for another Friday forecast, all in hour two. Jacob Padilla is en route to Memphis for some weekend basketball. We'll check in with Jacob, get his thoughts on the week and how things are going with him. Maybe touch some NBA as well, but we'll be pretty heavy with Husker baseball. And a thought here, what a winning season does for Nebraska next season on the gridiron, ... We'll take your comments and your feedback in the stream. Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Be sure to log on, subscribe, watch the show that way. Like and subscribe for sure. Also follow on Twitter at HVarsity Radio, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed. Find Elijah at Herbal Essence, at Schmidt_radio. For me, Chris Schmidt, excited to be with you and a lot to get into. You can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. Plenty of emails we didn't get to yesterday. A few we'll make sure we get on the air as well. We'll get our shout-outs, our starting five, our first five viewers in the stream. And always welcome to hear us across the Hail Varsity Radio Network, wherever you can find us in Lincoln, in Omaha, in central Nebraska, and in northeast Nebraska. Elijah, how you doing? How did you celebrate? You were a winner again last night with another solid NBA pick. If we had any sense, we would have took the 13.5 in Cleveland last night outright. We would have gone money line on the Cavs, and we didn't.
Luckily, we don't have any sense. And luckily, we picked the Mavs and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Great game from Luka, great post-game moment from Luka, which I don't think we can play on the air. Did you see that?
I did not.
I think I can. I don't think we can play it on the air, but...
Give me the Cliff's Notes.
Cliff Notes, Luka was opening up his press conference, and it seems that somebody connected to the Bluetooth speakers in the press room with an adult video pulled up on their phone.
Really?
Yeah, it just started blasting through the speakers in the middle of Luka's presser. And I don't know, you always wonder if it's a prank. It doesn't seem to be a prank. It seems
That's
to be
hilarious.
Somebody accidentally connected to the Bluetooth and the last played video on their phone started playing.
Somebody forgot to close a window. Forget the browser history. You forgot to shut the video down. That's hilarious. Crew is in first. He is in first in the StreamYard. Good on you, Crew. Brandon is here. Roger checks in along with our dear friend Dion. Jeff is here. KG Light is, I'm back. The eyewitness couldn't, quote, remember if it was me he saw. KG, you're funny. I like that.
That's why eyewitness reports are notoriously unreliable.
Brennan from the Black Hills is here. Justin is in. NU Grandpa, good to have you as well. Patrick says, hola. Hola back to you, Patrick. The other Dave. Dave, good to be with you. Eat Beef is in. Mr. Snitley. Jeff Snitley from the Boulder Peace Treaty is in. How will Husker Baseball let us all down again this weekend? Jeff, you got to be a little more positive. We'll hear from Will Bolt. And are you going to see most of this regular season Sears versus, and I'm not knocking his last two outings, but Will Bolt's got a good explanation on that. Justin says Elijah saw hope last night and then it had it ripped from him. Believe he's referring to your OT loss for the Avs.
It was not OT. They blew it with the empty net. It's okay. They were coming all the way back. You asked to lead off this show, how did I celebrate being the winner of a steak and a beer bet? I pigged out on some Doritos and watched the Avs. They broke my heart early, gave me hope late. Danny Burke kind of rubbed it in whenever the Stars took a 4-0 lead on Twitter. So I was glad to see the Avs battle back because Danny had money on the Stars, we can only assume. So he was rubbing it in a little bit. Avs came all the way back and then
couldn't close.
Not so much, couldn't close the deal. But that's okay. It was a great game to watch, and I have confidence in my Nuggets tonight.
Hey, we'll go there. That'll be fun. Patrick gives me a big ol' Ric Flair woo. Matthew is here, which is nice. Walter from Philly is already ready for week 2. Bleep you, see you. And Mr. Brian Snitley is back. What would be more of a surprise? Nebraska baseball sweeping this weekend, or who is Megan Walker?
Track and field athlete.
Okay, we'll leave that alone, Brian, so we can be with you on Saturday morning. Brian, another Brian is in. Good to have you as well. 489-1240, 489-1240 to get in. 800-825-5865. Good question, Brian. I can't complete the question.
Terrible question.
Well, I mean, he may be asking the chat, and I just read it out loud. So, a winning season, right? Let's preface this by what Nebraska has this weekend coming to town. David Sanders Jr., another 5-star visitor, the offensive tackle out of Charlotte. Providence Day School is coveted. Use your Hannibal Lecter voice, coveted. By many. Nebraska will show him a good time for an official visit. You also have Broderick Scholl, another high-level offensive lineman, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, Auburn. Then there's Nebraska. What kind of dent can Nebraska make when it comes to decision-making for these two top targets on the offensive tackle side of things for 2025? And then you have Nicholas Clayton, an edge guy, out of Gainesville, Florida, that's also going to be here this weekend. Caleb Benning is going to be there this weekend. He's already signed for sure, but it'll be nice when you have a Nebraska guy in this weekend's festivities to kind of help lead the way. You have Dylan Raiola, of course, that's not afraid to peer recruit. And Elijah, you got to be excited for Nebraska because they have done a lot of things. They have done a good job of kind of managing the rule plan, right? And that is physical spring football. You saw it on display with wideouts and quarterback play about 3 weeks ago. They've done a great job of not telling people that this is the place you want to be, but they've shown that in the sense where they lead college football with fewest portal departures. And you've got guys foregoing the NFL to stay in Lincoln on the defensive side of the ball. You have a defensive coordinator turning down head coaching jobs to stay and run it back. So the one more year or many more years could be a real thing. And once it pops, if it pops, I think it's going to be when it pops for Nebraska, it's going to be a good thing. And 4- and 5-star visitors are not going to be foreign to Nebraska football. You've already seen them land one at quarterback. You're working on a wide receiver / athlete that was in for the spring game, and now you have the top offensive tackle in high school football making his way. The bandwagon, there's going to be room for you if you're a high-level player. There's room for you based on how much work these coaches put in when it comes to what their eyes tell them and their evaluation. So a winning season is that cherry on top. It's expected by everybody down there. But what type of winning season are we talking about? We talking about, all right, you got bowl eligible, you're 7-6. Is it the grass-fed weed eater bowl? Is it somewhere down in Florida on New Year's Day, like a citrus or whatever the hell it's called now? Is it a New Year's Day 6? Is it a playoff appearance? I mean, there's low end, there's floor, there's ceiling of bowl trips, all of which you've gotten to watch from here because you weren't going. You didn't have the wins to get there. So a winning season absolutely kind of shows proof to not only potential recruits, 5-star and below, but also really validates the reason, Elijah, these guys all came back. That's why they came back, because I think they're close.
Well, let's talk about the different angles that a season helps with. You laid it out first with recruiting. Let's start there. Let's look at this weekend, a guy in David Sanders Jr., top offensive tackle by all accounts in the country. You watch the film, you understand why. He's one of those guys, Schmidt, you and I talked off air, kind of reminds you of one of those guys that going into high school with his frame and his feet could have been a power forward, could have been a tight end.
He has that good feet. He's that good a movement.
Could have been an offensive lineman. Decides to go the offensive tackle route. I mean, he's just a freaky athlete. Let's not act like he's a plug-and-play guy. A lot of people are going to throw that around there, seeing he's a number one offensive tackle. He's got a lot of filling out he needs to do, but the job becomes easier when you have a guy that's a freak athlete such as David Sanders Jr. To get back to the point about what does a winning season do? Well, it makes Nebraska a serious viable option for a guy like that. I know you got Dylan Raiola last year coming off of a losing season. It's different. You have the family connection. You have the home feel of Lincoln, Nebraska for the Raiola family. It's different for a guy in David Sanders, and it feels like from what we're hearing, Raiola's been a big part in this recruitment, getting him on campus this weekend. You need a proof in the pudding type season for him to show him, hey, you're not going to end up missing 4 straight bowl games and missing your NFL opportunity as opposed to going to Clemson or Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State. These teams where you're going to go, you're going to get wins, you're going to get looks. Nebraska needs to show that they're going to be a place that gets looks, that gets draft picks, that gets bowl appearances, that gets college football playoff appearances. And you're not going to show all of that this year, but you can have a season that shows what you're building and can get recruits excited. So I think that's an important part. B, I look at the donors. The donors of a football program like Nebraska, money. How much wear out is there if you've been donating year after year after year after year and it's led to 5-7, 3-9, 4-8? There's a wear out factor for your donors saying, okay, I have shelled out X amount of dollars. Where are the results that come from it? I have
where's my return, baby?
I have paid millions of dollars in coach buyouts. Where's my return? A proof in the pudding type season that this season could be is big for donor fatigue whenever you know, oh, he may be trying to fund another South Stadium renovation here that appears to still be not on track, delayed, but still in the works in some way. Follow the dollars. That's important. Like a winning season in any way, shape, or form, whether that's 7-5, 8-4, 9-3, 10-2, whatever bowl game you're playing in, it doesn't matter. It's just helpful to show all interested parties, all the stakeholders in Nebraska football, it's moving in the right direction. There's reason for optimism. And yes, Nebraska is a place that will be a power again.
Well put, laid out. The viable option part is super key. I mean, listen, there's always that caveat, and you don't need to apologize for it if you're Nebraska. But yeah, the family connection helped be different for Nebraska with getting a 5-star despite a 5-7. But the Rule track record's not anything to sneeze at if you're a high-profile ball player. And that is something that from Raiola's standpoint, you want to flip the narrative. You want to make a legacy. You want to bring it back to being high level. That's what Danny Caitlin wants to do. That's what Harburg wants to do, right? So with Raiola, if there weren't the family connections, he's probably somewhere else. But the good thing for Nebraska is, yeah, you have those family connections, and you had a guy willing to come to a place to try and make it great again. So some of the comments in the stream. Scott says, it's May. Natty in our future. LOL. Realistic. A good bowl game would be nice. How about Fiesta Bowl versus Missouri? Justin says that would be cool. Ken says, I would love to see the Huskers intercept Sanders and truck him in a block for a touchdown. You have NASCAR Eric, who has checked in, and we have a phone call, 489-1240. Who's with us?
Pete in Chattanooga.
Pete in Chattanooga. Pete, welcome to it. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks. My stage name is NU Grandpa, so you know you're
I love it.
talking.
NU Grandpa, good to have you, man.
Yeah, thanks. I want you guys to analyze to see, just tell me how signs that we're going to be good on the O-line. The word I keep hearing people talk about is we're more experienced. And I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a buddy of mine decades ago. We were getting ready to play Oklahoma, and I was concerned that their starting offensive line, the majority, were 3-year starters. And he said, don't worry. He says, they were average as sophomores, they were average as juniors, and they'll be average as seniors. And Nebraska ended up winning that. I know we're improved from 22, but I would say that's disappointing. But some of the metrics that I see, that our quarterback's the leading rusher, low point total.
Pete, hang on. We got a hard break. We'll finish your thought in a moment. Hang tight for me.
Yeah, great, thanks.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. Jacob Badilla with us shortly, but NU Grandpa, we wanted to get your thoughts. You were asking about the O-line as he calls in, 489-1240. What's experience mean? That's the question, correct, NU Grandpa?
Experience and improve. What we need to be is good.
Mm-hmm.
When are we going to see signs that the O-line is good? Because if we just remain improved and experienced, we'll be a middle-of-the-pack team.
Well, if you look at improved, to all of our thoughts, that means Nebraska can do what? Nebraska can protect their quarterback on 3rd and 8. Nebraska can protect their quarterback on 1st and 10. And Nebraska can also turn and hand off and get about 4 to 5 if it's 3rd and 4. All right? I mean, that to me is good. If Nebraska suffers an injury, the kid you bring in at the next left or right tackle or center or guard comes in and does a bang-up job, there's no drop-off, right? I mean, that to me is good. That is improved. And with experience, it means you played a lot of football. And presumably, you've gotten better at playing football because you've kept repping it, and you're going to get the most out of the talent that you came in with. And a lot of those guys were playing early in their career, so they didn't have time to just work on their craft. They got thrown in, and it was learn on the job, and they were getting worked. They weren't ready to be a starter. They were maybe ready to be in and do a rotation at the end of the game if you were leading, but that wasn't the path they were given in the past. So Nebraska's got options at guard. Nebraska has some options at tackle. And you've got a couple of options at center on top of guys that played pretty good football for you last year. I thought the line was fine. I thought they ran it okay. It was just a situation where Nebraska couldn't really run the offense they wanted to run, so they had to adapt, and they found a way to get 5 games. That's my worldview of last season. Well, and it wasn't all on the O-line.
And I think you can have an offensive line that does not lose you games with what I've seen from this team, and that can be a win for you because it's been years and years and years of your offensive line. I mean, dating back to pretty much 2020 of your offensive line losing you football games.
Think of Adrian having to run for his life.
Exactly. Is Nebraska's offensive line next season with development going to be competing for a Joe Moore Award, or are they going to be up there competing to be a top offensive line in the Big Ten? Are there first-round draft picks on that offensive line? No, I don't think so, not as it stands right now.
But you'll have a couple of guys that could be draft picks.
Could be draft picks, first-round, second-round guys. No, probably not. Guys that are going to get a look on an NFL roster maybe. Is that what Nebraska needs from their offensive line endgame next season? No. You're going to be trying to work around some things because, as I said, the offensive line last year was fine. They weren't great. They weren't bad. I give them a 5.5 out of 10 after years and years of a 2. If you can get it to a 6 or a 6.5, that's an offensive line in the Big Ten that's good enough to at least go make a bowl game, get you to 7 wins, get you to maybe 8 wins with improved quarterback play, with improved weapons offensively. You don't need to have an offensive line that looks like Michigan in order to have a successful football team.
But be building to become another Michigan line, for sure. And you, Grandpa, thanks for tuning in, man. Thanks for the phone call. Always appreciate you checking us out.
I appreciate your analysis on that, fellas.
Have a good one, bud. There he is. And you, Grandpa, 489-1240. We'll get Jacob on the horn. He's headed to Memphis.
Yeah, one more quick thing I want to bring up here because Ken brings up an interesting topic of conversation from our compatriots in the morning on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Damon pointed to a stat that the line last year was 3rd in the Big Ten for time allowed to a quarterback, which is true. But if you look a little bit deeper, why would that be? Let's ask ourselves, why would that offensive line have the 3rd most allowed time for a quarterback in the Big Ten, deeper than just your offensive line?
Tell me.
Did Heinrich Haarberg threaten you more with his legs or with his arm?
With his legs, for sure.
So is that a guy you want to flush from the pocket, or is that a guy you want to keep in the pocket and make him force the ball downfield? I
think the offensive line did a good enough job to win the football games last year throwing the football. You had a guy trying to win who wasn't a throw-first guy. So I don't believe it was on the O-line. You saw Nebraska do some work in their win streak in October on the ground, and they had their chances in much of November in some tight ball games. But those turnovers, they weren't the O-line's fault. I'll say that. But, yeah, I mean, you had a mobile quarterback that's going to make some time for sure. But there's also plenty of time where a throw and a guy that was open wasn't hit. So Nebraska will be a much bigger threat. Throwing the football, you'll have a balanced offense with a run game, and it could work well. He is on his way to Memphis. I don't know what's on the playlist. Jacob Padilla is with us here on Hail Varsity, and can read Jacob with Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports at Jacob Padilla _
Jacob strikes me like a podcast guy, not a music guy on a road trip.
I think he's probably a little of both. Jacob, how we doing? Where are you in the United States right now?
I just drove through Imboden, Arkansas.
Okay. A glorious spot. Did you stop for lunch yet? Have you had dinner? I mean, it sounds like you got a great connection. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I stopped about midway. It's about a 10-hour drive. I'm heading to Memphis for an AAU tournament. Stopped midway through to refuel and take lunch and stretch my legs a little bit. So we're on the stretch run now. Only about less than 2 hours left till arrival. So got through the tough part and feeling pretty good still.
So you're into like the border between Missouri and Arkansas type area?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly where I am. I just keep going where the phone tells me to. But yeah, I'm heading towards Jonesboro. Going to drive through there on the way to Memphis.
Well, let me know if you make it through a place. It's in the Ozarks, kind of on the border. Ravenden, Arkansas. You can't miss it because as you're driving through town, there's the giant creepy ass raven right in the middle of town.
Yeah, that was about 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that place is one of my least favorite places to drive through. It's very. Children of the Corn's not the right word, but it definitely feels like that town has some secrets.
Well, we will. That's just not a fun Friday topic.
You can ask Jacob. Jacob just made it through 10 minutes ago. Am I wrong,
Did
Jacob?
you speed through, or were you comfortable?
Yeah, I was behind a semi, so got a nice leisurely drive through the town.
Uh-huh.
It was fine.
I like it. Jacob, we're talking.
It kind of looked the same like a lot of others until I came up to the Raven.
Yeah, well, the Raven was there.
And it scares you. It's got red eyes. It's no good.
Okay.
No good, that statue.
Red-eyed Raven.
It's like 10 feet tall.
That's a drink somewhere in Jonesboro. Tell me what you think a winning season does for Nebraska football, Jacob. We're going to go there. We'll get some NBA thoughts from you here, too. But what would a winning season signify for this Nebraska football program?
It just it would signify progress. It would just signify this thing is kind of on schedule, that it's moving forward. That is the next step. Like, Rhule, just from what we've heard and what we've seen, feels like he's done a lot of the right things, and now we just have to see that result and win. And obviously, things are changing with the new playoff and all that, but they got to get to the bowl game first. They got to finish better than 500. Like that's the next step, and we're working. They're working their way toward. This will be their first step here, with the chance to again get over that hump that we haven't seen in a few years. So it's just kind of proof of concept. Like, all right, everything they've done has them on the right path forward.
Do you think it's also doubly important to I don't know, plant a flag a little bit in this new Big Ten, because it's not the old Big Ten that you had some problems competing in over the last several years. It's a much tougher Big Ten.
Yeah, and obviously first year, be curious to see just how it all kind of turns out with the different schedules and how spread out the conference is, what the travel, like what kind of impact we see on the teams that are making those long cross country. So some of the California schools going all the way the other side of the country, or vice versa. See if there's any kind of impact on the level of play from that, like kind of what it looks like, the hierarchy without kind of the natural split into divisions. So yeah, like you said, it's kind of an important point not to get lost in the shuffle. To like show, hey, Nebraska is, maybe not be ready to compete for a national championship yet, but they're not going to just go away as this ten grows.
Do you think it's more important to show potential future recruits, hey, Nebraska is not a place where your career will come to die? Is it more important to show the people around Nebraska, the fans, the stakeholders, the boosters, hey, all the money, all the time, all the resources you invest into Husker football, it's not for nothing?
No, for sure. I mean, that's as important as NIL, and relationships, and all that stuff is. Like, athletes want to win, and they want to go to a place where they can win. And so they need to, again, that proof of concept that, like, hey, this is a place where you can accomplish all your dreams. You can come here. You can win. You can have a great time. You can play in front of a great fan base. You can get to the pros. Like, it's important to show that players can accomplish all of that by coming to Nebraska.
Jacob Padilla is with us, making his way to Memphis, Tennessee. He is traveling through Arkansas right now. Jacob, will probably keep you another couple of minutes on the other side. We're up against a tough break right now. Nebraska's got a good recruiting weekend this weekend. Number one offensive tackle in the country. They've gotten in on an official visit, and just kind of looking at his film, and Elijah's done some nice film work on him. You've got a guy that's at 6'7" that is just crazy strong, can fill out. There's a frame for weight, and his he moves kind of like, is it fair to say, Elijah, like a basketball guy?
Great feet, yeah.
Great feet on the offensive tackle.
Really comfortable in space.
Yeah, so I want to think about this for a minute, and we'll get back to you in just a moment. Just that power forward / offensive tackle combo. Jacob on his way to an AAU tournament. Be sure to catch his work on Twitter at Jacob Padilla, but with Hurrdat Sports and Hail Varsity.
And Jacob, along with that, we need you to play the Twitter game of the week that we've seen some former NFL and NBA players. Would a football player fare better in basketball, or does a basketball player fare better in football? There's been a lot of discussion. We need your take after the break.
Hang tight. Jacob is in Arkansas. Get some barbecue, dude. Hang tight. More with Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? We're not pointing you yet.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Some overtime with Jacob Padilla from Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports. in Arkansas. We will not dive into our stream comments about Arkansas, as there is a lot of shade being thrown at the state of Arkansas.
If you hear the banjo music, hammer that gas pedal.
That's the consensus in the StreamYard comments. Jacob, the thought of basketball guys being wooed over to the gridiron, over to football, specifically with those large frames, long arms, and great feet. Are you seeing more of that?
I think just if we're talking about the conversation overall, I think it's a little ridiculous on its head just going from playing one pro sport to another, except for the fact that, well, for one, I think Matt Rule's entire recruiting philosophy kind of gives credence to it being possible, and maybe something that there's some merit to it, because isn't he all about just grabbing athletes and figuring it out later? And he's moving guys all over different positions, trying guys out wherever. I think that's a mark in favor of the people saying that it would be easier for basketball to move to football than the other. And I think there are specific positions in football that kind of lend itself to maybe taking an athlete from a different sport. I think the best example we have is like undersized posts going switching to tight end from the basketball court to the football. And we've seen that in the NFL with, Rico Gathers had coming out of Baylor, played basketball there, rebounding monster, hadn't played football since he was 13 and got drafted by the Cowboys and ended up a few games in the NFL. And obviously we've got some other examples. Mo Alley Cox for the Colts is another one that was kind of an undersized post in college, rebounding monster, and got a chance, and he's stuck in the league and been a significant player for them. So I think in general, if it's kind of ridiculous to say, oh yeah, you can grab 30 guys and they could go 100% perform at that level. But I think there obviously are examples of basketball to football. I can't really think of any guys deciding, you know what, I'm done with football, I'm going to go play basketball now and actually stick in the NBA off the top of my head. So I think it's just kind of, there's certain positions where maybe it lends itself naturally to given a chance for that to work.
Well, what do you make of David Sanders Jr.? Because the feel I really get with him is he looks like a guy that freshman year of high school could have gone down one of two routes, whether it's an undersized post or maybe a big small forward, a rebounding small forward. He decides to go to the gridiron, standing at 6'6", 270, and plays offensive tackle. You lay it out. You see a lot of guys go from basketball to tight end. Offensive line's a little different. Maybe I'm way off. Maybe the kid just doesn't have a jumper. Maybe he was never born to be a basketball player. But from a frame and athleticism standpoint, he looks like a guy. I mean, you see him on his film. He's outrunning running backs at times during high school. That's the kind of athlete we're talking about here in David Sanders, a guy who's going to be on campus this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you got the 5-star quarterback. It only makes sense that you try to go get a highly regarded tackle to protect him, right, for the next couple of years once it gets here. But, yeah, that's another. I have seen, offensive line. I mean, heck, Brant Banks, Nebraska legend, going from offensive line to playing basketball for one game. And I know there's a kid playing, I forgot his name, but he played for Run GMC basketball that Nebraska was recruiting for football. I think he might have gone to Michigan or something like that. So I think the tight end is kind of more that natural position where it fits because, again, 6'7", 240, that's undersized posts in basketball, but it's perfect size for a big tight end in football. Offensive line is a little bit different because just the bulk necessary, but you do see those kind of those big guys. Heck, Gerald Foster was a basketball player in high school. It's always kind of fun seeing those guys that are true offensive linemen out there setting screens and going to work in the post.
Jacob, got to go to the NBA here before we say goodbye. Any series you're specifically locked in on? Are you watching intently Knicks Pacers? How are you with the Nuggets T-Wolves? What's got your radar going here for the NBA?
Yeah, well, right now I think OKC and Dallas is probably the most intriguing one. It's really unfortunate what kind of like injuries have done to the playoffs. It's kind of been the overriding storyline with all the guys that went down in the play-in round to start things off, and then some other guys went down and missed some time in the first round, and now we're still seeing guys playing through stuff with Jalen Brunson getting knocked down, coming back in, and now OG Anunoby's missing a game. It's a big loss for the Knicks, who already didn't have much depth to begin with, and we're playing like 6 or 7 guys. So with Denver, with kind of state of Jamal Murray, that's kind of put a damper on that series a little bit. He's just not able to give them what they need to compete with how good Minnesota's been. And even in that Dallas OKC one, like, Luka's clearly not right and had one of his worst playoff games in that first one, but found a way to kind of get through it, bounce back, and put the team on his back and get that big win and even that series. So that's probably the one right now that is the most interesting, and it's one that's 1-1 right now, so that would make sense. But yeah, just kind of going back and forth, Luka and Shea, and seeing the Thunder on the stage for the first time, and seeing Dallas continue to kind of the transformation after the midseason trades and how impactful those have been. So that's probably my favorite series right now so far.
We'll see. I think Denver and Minnesota gets more intriguing if the Nuggets can steal one in Minnesota tonight. It's a big F. I don't know. They got a couple days to get healthy. We'll see. I'm not confident, but I'm hopeful. Jacob, before we get you out of here, preview the basketball weekend that you've got coming here in Memphis.
Yeah, heading down for Pro 16. It's kind of the first big tournament so the Pro 16 is kind of our shoe circuit, the Puma circuit, that the Nebraska Supreme teams play on. This is kind of the second year. It was New Balance last year. Got a new partnership this year, and Puma's sponsoring it. This is year 2. Is our first one, again, with all the different Pro 16 teams coming together. We've only played, I think, 4 other Pro 16 teams so far, and we're playing 4 this weekend. So just high level of competition. So all 3 Nebraska Supreme teams will be playing. I'll be watching them. And actually, a kid that was just visited Creighton, Eric Reeve, 7-footer, a skilled kid. His team's playing down here, so I'm going to try to catch a little bit of him this weekend. And there are a handful of other guys that are showing up on the recruiting websites and all that are guys worth watching. So try to take in some good basketball this weekend.
Well, we're excited for your road trip and enjoy the weekend of hoops and get some Memphis barbecue. Is that on the plan?
I have not set out a plan for the rest of the weekend. I was just trying to get down here first, and then we're going to go from there.
It's the side of the road gas station barbecue that's the best.
Jacob Padilla with us here from Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports at Jacob Padilla _ Jacob, you take care, and thanks for giving us some time today.
No problem, guys. Thanks for kind of eating up some time on the drive.
There he goes. I like it.
Well, hey, Jacob, we got another hour of the show left still.
And he's done with us.
He's gone. Another hour left of the show to listen to, Jacob. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, just stream us wherever. YouTube channel. Bill Dolman, the professor, coming up here in about 15 minutes. We'll hear from Will Bolt next. Big series for Nebraska v. Indiana at Haymarket on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big weekend of baseball. We'll dive a little further in. Brian Christopherson of Husker 24/7. Some recruiting thoughts next hour. Bill Dolman, 10 minutes away. Elijah, it's big at Haymarket tonight. Some thoughts here from Will Bolt, and let's hear from Coach, and he did his media session yesterday, what this weekend, this series means. I mean, it's not just the Big Ten race, but you don't want to play with fire here and limp into the end of the season, finish on a downward trend. You've had a long list of teams that have been snubbed on Selection Monday, but here's Will Bolt. I think it's cut 6. Does Bolt talk about?
It's cut 7. I got it pulled up.
Cut 7 here with Will on just this weekend, what it means and what they need Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
I mean, I know we know where we're at in the standings, and you kind of have control of what you do. I mean, if you continue to win series and win games, then you've got a shot to finish at the top. And it's a good feeling to be in the last 2 weekends of the season and having that opportunity. Knowing that if you go play great baseball for 2 weeks, you've got a chance to win the league. So really that's where our focus is at. And, our focus is that, we need to get back on the right foot on Friday night and then go from there.
So that was Will Bolt. Now, Brett Sears has been incredible. He has been mortal his last 2 outings. Some explanation as to where Sears is at right now. Need a big one from him tonight.
Honestly, I would say his mound presence and attack from the get-go hasn't been quite what it was up to the last 2 weeks. And he's been able to wiggle out of some jams because of his competitiveness throughout the year. And I think that maybe he had kind of chasing some of the numbers a little bit, I think, at times. And again, I don't say that in a negative way. It's just human nature that, you set yourself up for this unbelievably high standard of, ERA and some of these things, and you start to try to chase perfection a little bit versus remembering kind of what got you there in the first place wasn't because you had the best fastball, breaking ball, or changeup. It was because you were the most prepared and most competitive. And that's the separator for really anybody. But for somebody like Brett, who had to go prove himself this year, that's what he had, that chip on his shoulder going out there. And I just, I know he's going to get that back. I think he can recognize that maybe he's needs to get back to that a little bit this weekend. And, I expect that from him.
So that is Will Bolt. Here's the reality for Big Ten teams. 6 Big Ten squads have hosted regionals since 2012. They had no worse than a number 13 or better RPI. Also, they had 40 wins, and all the RPI numbers were under 20. And Nebraska took that on the chin with the South Dakota State losses. They tumbled to number 30 in the RPI. And you've had 2 Big Ten teams in the Nebraska Big Ten era snubbed when it comes to Selection Sunday. So you don't want to go from, okay, you're still a 2 seed somewhere to a lower 2 seed or a 3 seed in a real brutal regional, or worse. You're just absolutely snubbed like Rutgers was in 2022 with 44 wins, but their RPI was 42, or 2018 Illinois with an RPI of 47.
Well, look where you're 30th in the RPI. If you're 32nd, who are you playing in the regional? Texas A&M. They're a wagon.
Well,
And that's not perfect.
It would keep with postseason tradition.
He's the pride of Fairbury, an average Joe. Bill Dolman, the professor.
I had a 6 ACT in 1967. One time I got an A and my grandma beat me for cheating.
Now with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. You hear him on the Average Joe Sports Show podcast. It is one, it is the only, it is Bill Dolman, the pride of Fairbury, the professor, back with us. Are you grading away, Billy D? Thanks for the time today.
It's like tax season to an accountant.
Finals. It's so dead week for you. Much different now than when you were an undergrad.
Yeah.
And you're just grading away.
Well, it's been pretty much that way since the beginning of the semester, but it tends to intensify as dead week rolls around. And I don't give my students a whole lot of stuff to do in dead week because I got other stuff I got to do. So they got it pretty easy, to be honest with you, when dead week rolls around. Except for that Connor Clark kid, I'm still working on his stuff, even though he wasn't in one of my classes this semester.
Well,
we'll see if he graduates.
He's in Fargo.
I know. I'm representing Salt Dogs tonight with the season opener, and so excited about the new dog campaign.
Well, Bill,
I like it.
Let me ask you, the new wave that's hitting college students and high school students is they're using the AI, the ChatGPT, to help them with school. Have you taken that step with grading? Do you just feed the papers into ChatGPT and say, grade this for me?
Well, I can't spell AI, nor can I spell ChatGPT. So, no, I have not figured out a way to do that. But thanks for the idea. And I wish you'd maybe suggested that about 4 months ago.
Not yet.
The secondary idea is to go with the AI use of the guy who was the Ohio State commencement speaker. The ayahuasca intelligence.
Good call, Uncle Ted, with that.
Yeah, Ted Carter was wanting that Nebraska job back.
No kidding. So
he wanted to see if they had a good severance package. All it was.
Let's talk Nebraska football. And we started the show off with this. A winning season does what for Nebraska football in the recruiting world, in the booster world, but also on the and I know you're a measured recruiting guy, but
that's one way to put it.
But it's not lost on any of us that the number one offensive tackle in the country is visiting this weekend when Nebraska wasn't even on his short list. So kind of a thought on this year too. You've seen and read and heard kind of the build up and buzz between power rankings and Joel Klatt's thoughts, and you know what, the hype trains is growing here, and we're not even to June.
Well, I think if Nebraska has a winning season in 2024, that just sets the Huskers up for another offseason national championship in 25. I mean, nobody has dominated the offseason really the last 50 years like Nebraska has. So I think if Nebraska has a winning campaign, the buzz will be great, and there's no question that going into next year's spring game and into the summer that it'll be better than ever for the Big Red in the offseason. Look, you know, I think there's one thing that I'm kind of noticing with the players that they do seem to be bringing in, and it's a positive. Now, whether they sign with Nebraska or not, that remains to be seen. But, you know, for a long time, you know, we hear about these recruiting classes and all that. You know, Nebraska's always kind of been at the forefront of player amenities, right? When it came time to have, you know, Xboxes and video games and lounge-like locker rooms, and everything looks like a bank as opposed to an actual locker room and football office. Nebraska's always done that, but it always seemed like the players they were getting in, that's what they had played for, was that they got to come to school to play with the toys, get their scholarship, and you know, what they had achieved in high school to get a college scholarship was really, that was the pinnacle of their career. I think that they're actually bringing in players who have a mindset that this is where they want to be. They do want to have all of those amenities and have things nicer than the other teams and programs. But I think you also have players that do seem to have a work ethic that they're bringing along with them. That's, you know, a short-term example of these players, but based on what you've seen in the offseason, and I think indicated also by the players who wanted to stay. And Matt Rule made the comment the other day. I heard that he was speaking in Lincoln and talked about how he advised Ty Robinson to go to the draft, and he said, "No, I'd rather stay here because I enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the building process." Dylan Raiola told the boys on the bus, you know, the chance to come here and build something special and leave a legacy. I think there's a mentality to be great as opposed to coming here to get great things. I guess, yeah, to do great things as opposed to getting great things. I think that's kind of a significant mindset in the players that they're recruiting, and a winning season's only going to enhance who they're going to bring in.
Bill, on the other side of things, what does a winning season do for the fans, for the boosters? It's been a while, and there's been some hopeless times from the fan base and from the boosters. What does a winning season do for that contingent? The ones who aren't on the field, but the people who still
help put people on the field.
I'll say with dollars and cents make the Husker football program.
Friends of the program.
Yeah,
boosters
there might
of
be
substance.
Yeah, I think there will be more friends of the program, but you know, I don't think that they've necessarily really gone away. I think people always have wanted to be associated with. Will they be a little bit more freely to give? Possibly. Will things turn around politically and culturally and economically in this country so that they can enjoy the fruits of Nebraska's victory and partake in it? Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, winning's, you know, cures a lot of ills. And if Nebraska has a winning season and we dominate the Farmers Fresh bowl game or whatever Nebraska's going to be in for as long as bowl games last, let's face it, those things might be going the way of the dinosaurs too, who, you know, died of smoking. But look, if Nebraska has a winning season, people are going to be really excited about being a part of the program and saying that they, you know, Nebraska is going to be like the Packers, right? in the next iteration of college football, which is going to be the college NFL, and the Packers are, kind of America's darlings in a small market, and everybody's got an ownership stake. That's what Nebraska ought to do. They ought to start selling stock shares in Nebraska football. How many people would pitch in $1 or $5 or $10 just to put that certificate on the wall?
I'm part owner.
Right, that they're part owner of Nebraska football, because that's where we're headed. We're headed to the college NFL. So you want to make a little money and have a fundraiser and have everybody, in this small market that has a national following like the Packers, then do it. Give people a sense of ownership in Nebraska football, right? I think that's I got to go. I got an idea to copyright or trademark, but I really seriously let's put ownership in Nebraska football and make everybody an admiral in Nebraska Navy, whatever else we can come up with, and have people pitch in.
Is that not built in as a Nebraskan though? That feeling of ownership over the Husker football program, the fact that of anything this state exports, Husker football is the biggest PR boost for Nebraska. I think there's a kind of a collective ownership that the state feels over the Husker football program, even though you might not have the certificate to put on the wall.
Well, absolutely. But I'm talking about going to shop class and making a certificate and selling it for $10. This is capitalism, okay?
Elijah's not allowed near the table saw.
The whole state has ownership in Nebraska athletics, not just Nebraska football. It's football, but look at volleyball. All those people, there's 25,000 people that will say they were at the last 2 spring games, and there's been 5,000 at each or whatever. But yeah, Nebraska fans have ownership in the program, but let's get the calligraphy out and let's sell a piece of paper for $10.
Bill, I want to get your thoughts.
A portion of the proceeds go to the University of Nebraska Athletic Department.
That is Bill Dolman with us at Bill Dolman on Twitter. So this was a pretty cool article that came out a week ago from The Athletic, and it was just how Ohio State is sick and tired of where they are. And that was to double and triple their efforts in the NIL world. And it was some good commentary from Gene Smith. I know he retires here, I think, at the end of June. But it really spoke to Ryan Day stepping back and to have more of a CEO approach, i.e. Chip Kelly coming in to call plays. And he's going to be making some phone calls. And in the article, to paraphrase, Gene Smith said, look, they know why I'm calling, right? The people of substance around Ohio. But if you call, they may still know why you're calling. But coming from you, it's not as hard to part with the dollars or scratch that check. I want to kind of get your take on Matt Rhule's impact, not only as head coach, but what he can do from a handshake standpoint, fundraise standpoint. I mean, he is Mr. Relationship. I think Nebraska's in a great spot, not only with him as coach, the way he's running the program, but also all the things you need to be as a head football coach now.
He's done a great job, and we've chronicled that for almost a year and a half now. In he and Matt Foley's dad and all of the coaches to go around the state and to have those handshake conversations with people around the taverns, around the Busch Light, to feel like they're part of the state. So once you reach out with an honest handshake to Nebraska fans, the second time around, there might be a little something in the handshake, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that they've done a great job of that. And that goes back to the ownership, that when you make Nebraska fans and people feel like they're part of it, like they do have ownership in it with their heart and soul, and you repay that with, good teams who conduct themselves in an admirable and a respectful way that honors the culture of Nebraska, Nebraska fans will respond in kind. And, look, this is a handshake and look in the eye kind of state. And I think that people feel that from Matt Rhule, that he genuinely likes it here. He said it over and over, so much so that I think people might, start to believe him. And that's why they want to be a part of it with their dollars or their efforts, or good Lord, let's get the beat program back going again.
Bill, let's go to baseball. Huge weekend for Nebraska. You've been around the game of college baseball a long time, and you've you know that this selection Monday, you don't want to be sweating it out, but there's been a little ring around the collar for a lot of Big Ten teams come Selection Sunday. It's huge this weekend, and then obviously at Sparty to end it. Do you anticipate Nebraska limping into the Big Ten tournament, or do you think they right themselves here after just another midweek misstep this week?
Look, I thank God every day for a lot of things. The next couple of weeks, I don't believe there are any midweek games. Correct?
Right.
Thank you, God. That I don't get it. I don't understand how Nebraska, handles the midweek. Look, I get that they've got to be ready for conference weekends, and that's what's most important. But when you treat the midweek like it's a spring training game in Florida, and then it comes back and bites you the way it did against South Dakota State the other night, you leave yourself really, if you don't want to limp in, you put yourself in a position where you're going against one of the other good teams in the conference. You almost feel like you got to sweep Indiana and not go 2-1. I mean, you got to make up some ground for losing to South Dakota State the way that you did. And then Nebraska wraps up on the road at Michigan State. There are 3 teams in the Big Ten right now with 30 wins. Nebraska is one of them. Illinois, and I think Maryland is the other. And Illinois has 13 conference wins. Iowa has 13 conference wins. Those 2 teams are playing right now this weekend. The other top team, second place in the league, is Purdue. And Illinois and Purdue wrap up the regular season against each other. So the Illini right now in first. Nebraska has Indiana, fortunately at home. They should be motivated after what transpired against the Jackrabbits. Look, if Nebraska is able to sweep Indiana, good Lord, they cannot lose the series. But if they sweep Indiana, certainly win it, they're not going to be sweating it out. I think where they're going to be sweating out the week Selection Monday is, where are they going to go? Are they going to get a favorable placement, or are they going to get, sent to Texas A&M or Arkansas or something like that where it's going to be virtually impossible to get out of? And unfortunately, Nebraska's played around. They've FAFO'd, shall we say, in the midweek. And, that's detrimental. What, they lose like 9 places or something after in the RPI?
In the RPI.
Yeah, and after they had been losing midweek games and dropping like a point spot or one or not, but it was like the RPI algorithm all of a sudden. All right, we've had enough. Last chance in the midweek. You lose to these guys, giving up all those runs in the last 2 innings. We're docking you 9 and putting you in a precarious position. But they could still win the Big Ten. They could still win the Big Ten, and I think all those teams in the top 3 with 30 wins are going to get in.
I would go as far as to say, Bill, not that they could win the Big Ten. I think they should win the Big Ten. If you can go take care of business, you should win the Big Ten. Now,
I think you have the best 2 Friday, Saturday, and you've got an offense that is really unique because Nebraska puts, old school National League pressure on teams. They've stolen more bases this year, I think, than they attempted all of last year. And, there's just something about when they get on and when they do, get a little bit of momentum and can put the ball in play, they can run a team ragged. But, game 3 of a series is that third starting pitching and how they manage the bullpen is a mystery. And, at the beginning of the season, it wasn't. We talked about Nebraska having such great depth in the bullpen. Boy, the second half of the season and down the stretch, it has just it's looked like spring training.
Bill, we'll see you this weekend. Always love your insight and thoughts. Jump on that AI train and
yeah. I should have had a student do a paper on that and teach me how to grade with AI, huh?
Ayahuasca intelligence.
Bill Dolman with us. Bill, we'll talk soon, bud.
Go Big Red. See you.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal, Brian Christopherson back with us at Husker 24/7 BC, senior writer with Husker247.com. BC, how's the weekend, man? Thanks for the time.
I can't complain, man. I I sent a message to the neighbors this afternoon with a fresh mow, 45-degree angle on the cuts. You know, that always tells people, like, step it up around me, please. So I feel really good about how the lawn looks. Friday, I can't complain.
So tell me about, we're going to get into all sorts of recruiting and Husker preseason hype in a moment, but is the hype for a fearful Brian Christopherson larger than the buzz Nebraska football has so far this offseason? I'm, of course, talking about your kickboxing adventure.
Yeah, I made the mistake of telling you off air. I started a kickboxing class. So that's what this is about. I've taken 2 classes so far. My wife recommended we do it together. It has been a fun spouse activity where you bond a little bit, but it's tough when she's in much better shape than I am. I was just laying on the floor while people were doing things around me for about a minute last time out, so I'm hoping for a better showing tonight.
See, it's a good spousal activity until she starts really kicking your ass.
Right now, I think I'm behind. So I got some catch-up work to do. I mean, you guys know I've never been the most intimidating specimen on the block.
Except for the yard.
I did play. That's true. Yeah, let's go back to that. I did play high school soccer, but that's now. It's like Uncle Rico telling those stories at this point. That's far removed. So, you know, I don't know. Sometimes you get to an age. I realized this last year in Boulder, after the Nebraska-Colorado game. I was walking up the stairs to go to the press box, and granted the altitude, so you can use that as an excuse, but I was freaking pooped when I got to the top, and I was like, something's got to change here. So nothing has changed since then, but now maybe it is with the kickboxing class, so this is probably good for me.
I think Boulder was a wake-up call for 2 of the 3 people currently involved in this interview.
Yeah, it might have been. Some of us decided to lose some weight and get on the treadmill and start free-weighting it because poor Elijah almost had to carry me out like I was Lieutenant Dan. I was dying in Boulder, man.
See, it does make sense. Like, those who know their Husker history, even the great Husker teams would have those fourth quarters sometimes where things would go off the rails, and you can downplay that altitude part. But, man, it gets you a little bit. We'll use that as the excuse, at least, to explain why we almost were passed out in the concourse.
That's about true. And the other part of it is Nebraska's up 20 points in those fourth quarters, and next thing you know, your beer buzz is gone because it's a 3-point game.
Yeah, there's been some interesting. You could write a pretty good little book on Nebraska trips to Colorado and everything that's happened there. But anyway, they're coming here this year, and I'm hopeful that game. I'm kind of have thought it's going to be on NBC at night, so I'm hoping that's the case. So that'd be awesome. But yeah, that's my segue into Husker football talk.
It is, and with the thought of it being a night game, big noon, going to be Texas, Michigan that second week. I mean, it's marquee. It's Nebraska that does have some buzz, and then of course the what next? What's year 2 look like for Coach Prime because of all their departures? It's not been great social media fodder for those outside the Colorado program, quite honestly, the last couple of weeks. And is the Colorado game a statement game on this schedule as you see it for Nebraska in 2024?
Well, I always am hesitant to go too far with that, but I think you're in the neighborhood with that comment because it just feels like this program, when you look at the last several years, it's really been a shot to the teeth those first couple of weeks. I mean, some of the tough outcomes have come in week 0 before the season's even started in most of college football, and there's like this cloud hanging over things. And so, yeah, it would be huge, obviously for the rivalry part and the Deion Sanders part and all that. But just frankly, to handle your business and be 2-0 at that point with people, sort of like, hey, are they going to be ranked this week? Kind of talking about that sort of stuff and sort of changing the conversation from what it's been the last few years. it'd be monumental. There's no doubt about it. And, it'll be, I know it's not the big noon game, but honestly, whether people like it or not, Deion Sanders' team is going to have everybody's attention early on in the season at least. Coming to Lincoln, I would expect that's going to be not your usual Nebraska nice crowd. I picture a little 2014 Miami and 92 Colorado type atmosphere. I think it's going to rival that. So it's everything you want in a college football atmosphere. And yet, I like that if you've heard Matt Rule talk, he's like, let's handle UTEP first. Mm-hmm. This program hasn't been 1-0 since 2019. So I know you guys are going to go over here and talk about this and that, but I think they're doing a good job of getting everybody focused on, you just got to handle what's directly in front of you and then take on the next thing when it's there.
BC, out of Colorado, I mean, there's been a lot made of the first 7 games of the season, how well set up you are for just October and November, the way your first 7 games go. What games in there outside of Colorado do you look at as being games that maybe Husker fans or even the team could be looking past? Because we're going to spend the next 2.5 months talking about Colorado. That's how it's going to go. Prime's a story. Matt Rule, Dylan Raiola, it's a story. Are there any games that you're afraid of this team looking past in this first 7-game stretch?
I hope not, because I don't think Nebraska football is in a position to do that. I think Rule has said that a lot to those guys. It's like you're 5-7 until you're not, and that's exactly right. Like, as much as there are certain games through the years we've said, oh, this is a marquee game, like, oh, they're going to play at Ohio State, or we've highlighted Michigan. I think, honestly, for this program right now, just as important are those games like Illinois, or a Purdue. It's like, can't handle your business there. That's why I was so excited about last October for the program. They weren't the sexiest games by any means, but that was a nice run where you felt like, okay, they took care of those sort of teams that are viewed in the middle or bottom half of the conference and set themselves up to be in the running in November. And that's something we hadn't seen in the past. So I think you got to carry that forward, handle those sort of games, and then ideally you have that confidence that results from that, and it kind of helps you when you play those other contests where maybe you steal one or two that people aren't expecting, and then you really take that step as a program. But it can't be a deal where, we're all talking about this team, this opponent, because they've got this high-profile name. Right now, everybody on Nebraska's schedule is one where you got to lock in, make sure you get it done, because the truth of the matter is other programs, until Nebraska proves otherwise, are looking at the Huskers the same way Nebraska's looking at them like, oh, well, this is a winnable game for us. Let's go get it. So you're that until you're not.
Brian Christopherson's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. We're talking with BC. Find him on Twitter at Husker247BC, and then read him with Husker247.com. So, Brian, a thought here as we shift from kind of the off-season talk to the recruiting side of things. Reaction to David Sanders Jr. making a visit. Nebraska, I'm sure, was after him. You look at some of the areas this Charlotte prodigy's already kind of put in his Super Six. What do you think of Nebraska getting him to get for an OV this weekend? I mean, just a number 1 offensive tackle in the country.
I think it says a lot about Nebraska's ability to sort of work behind the scenes because, as you mentioned, the Super Six that he had, like in March, it didn't have Nebraska on it. So Nebraska didn't let that derail them from keeping themselves in the mix behind the scenes. You got to give Donovan Raiola some credit. Yeah, he's involved in that as like some of the recruits that they've gotten into the program, like Grant Bricks last year, and they've had opportunities to take a swing at are pretty impressive. And then I also do think we'd be silly if we didn't act like there's a little bit of Dylan Raiola factor and sort of that buzz right now about the offense and a thought like, what they were isn't necessarily what they're going to be. Like, I think a lot of prospects are really kind of taking a closer look at how Nebraska's offense could evolve. It's very fair for all of us around here in the meantime to be skeptics until they put the proof out there. But we watched all the spring game, and it was easy to get kind of excited about that quarterback situation and how that can look different than it has. And those recruits are paying attention to that too. And don't forget, I mean, when Dylan was at Georgia as a commit, guys like David Sanders are coming through that program, and you're building relationships that still carry on. And so that sort of stuff matters. I think it's kind of a cool deal that Caleb Benning is actually taking an official, that even though he's all signed and delivered, he's probably a pretty good representative to have with those other guys who are here. So I think it's a good setup for Nebraska. They got the new facility up and all shiny now with the walk-through area and all that stuff. So I think there is a feeling like they're kind of past that hard hat experience for recruits when they visit, and now they're going to see the facility sort of polished up and looking closer to its finished product, which is useful.
Last thought here, BC, before I get you out. How much do you think a winning season changes Nebraska's recruiting strategy and how they're able to go after some guys? If Nebraska's able to get to that 7-8 win mark, how does that change how they recruit?
That's a good question. I don't know that it changes how the coaches go about their business. I think they'll just continue on as they have. They've always trusted their evals, and even Susan Elza was saying this the other day. It's not always been about just 4- and 5-star guys with this staff. They'll go after a 3-star who's doesn't hardly have an offer, but they've seen his track times and all that stuff, and it adds up to a guy they feel like they can develop. However, if you do win 7 or 8, I do think it gives you that nudge forward with these David Sanders type recruits we're talking about, where they look at it and they say, okay, it is actually changing now. You're seeing that Matt Rule's usual sort of path of improving his teams in the second and third years is happening, and I want to get in on that. So I do think with certain guys it could definitely be effective, no question.
Brian Christopherson's with us, Husker 24/7, and find him at Husker 24/7 BC on Twitter. Brian, awesome to get caught up, man. Enjoy your weekend, and thanks for a few minutes today.
Yeah, I got to go tape up now and get the gloves on, so say your prayers for me.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you. Hail Varsity Radio continues. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Find and watch the show, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, and can always check us out on Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. As we welcome in, he's imaginary. He wears red. For the Friday forecast, it is Clausburn time. Claus, how we doing? Thanks for a few minutes.
Well, I'm doing okay. It's such a beautiful day here. I had to pull in my lines. I probably had a big one that was just about to bite, but I know you need help with the ratings on a Friday, so here I am.
Claus, let's just be honest. You were going to let that thing off the hook as you're reeling it in. It's going to be a fumble.
You're talking to Clausburn, not our quarterback room from last season. Just in case, you might have hit the Cornhead Lager a little early, but try to keep up.
Let's, without further ado, get into some forecasting with Clausburn. This one's going to make Elijah sweat it out tonight. Denver and T-Wolves -3.5. The defending NBA champs down 0-2. I'll start with you, Elijah. How are you feeling tonight?
Good. I feel good. I think the Nuggets got a couple of days to get themselves healthy. KCP, he's been dealing with the ankle. Jamal Murray, he's been dealing with the calf. I think a couple days to get healthy, a couple days to reorganize is going to be good for the Nuggets. I think they win outright tonight. I was never going to pick against them. So don't take my word to the bank. Don't take it to the sportsbook. But I got the Nuggets to win this one, 108-106.
Okay, 108-106. I'm with you. I think Denver wins. I think they make this thing a series again. And I like the Nuggets 112-108. And they will avoid that 3-0 hole. Claus, I know you catch the NBA from time to time, and I don't know if you throw heating pads or not, but, well, Denver's had some experience with that. What do you like tonight here, Minnesota or Denver?
Well, I've got to be honest with you guys. I've been waiting for Minnesota to start disappointing us like so many Lutheran church potlucks when they start putting the peas in the green Jell-O.
I think you've been to more Lutheran church potlucks than I have.
Well, I've been to Minnesota a few more times, and that's pretty well their national dish. But Minnesota keeps on winning. Denver, I think, is too good to get swept out of this series, and now's as good a time as any to win. So I'll take the Denver Coors Banquet Beers, 108, and the Minnesota Grain Belts gastrointestinal issues, 104.
Ooh, Grain Belts.
I don't like us all being in agreement on that at all.
We'll see how it shakes out. Knicks, Pacers, Indiana minus 7.5. And how do the Knicks fare on the road? I'm going to go Indy at home here. That place is just crazy. They love playoff basketball. They love basketball, clearly. And I like the Pacers. I don't like the Pacers to cover, though. Give me Indiana 120 and New York 115. New York covers.
It's been a high-scoring series thus far, which has been unexpected. I think we returned back to a little bit closer to normalcy. I think the OG Anunoby loss is big. I think Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton carry the Pacers to victory. And I do think they cover. Give me Indiana 101 and the Knicks 90.
11-point win, says Elijah. You going New York or you going Indiana, Claus?
Well, Christopher, as you might imagine, I'm a big fan of the sports era of the 1990s. And, of course, this was a big rivalry in those days. So when I tune into Pacers-Knicks, I still halfway expect Reggie Miller and Spike Lee to get into it. But I imagine that's not going to happen. Now, this is one I will disagree with you fellas on. I think Indiana's had too much good news lately, what with the Fever drafting Caitlin Clark and Greg Doyle not being able to write articles about it. So
Jeez.
I think New York takes this one, 103, and the Pacers 100.
Well, I know. Let's head on down to Texas. Claus, the Mavs are near and dear to your heart. The Thunder are Bunny and Junior's favorite team. They still keep an eye on them. And the Mavs right now minus 2.5. I like the Mavs outright tonight. They are a ton of fun to watch. The Thunder, though, it's nice that they're finding a way back from, what could have been some title years that never really truly happened. Give me the Mavs 117 and the Thunder 110. Mavs cover, win tonight. Elijah, who do you like?
Schmitty, there's a trend coming out of Texas today. I'm not liking it. Apparently, Texans are going to Sonic, ordering a Dr. Pepper and putting pickles in it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, I can't ride with Dallas. The Mavs, they got me last night. I'm going to switch it back up, and I'm going back to the Thunder. I think there's too much Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Give me the Thunder winning this one, 118 to 115.
Claus, Mavs, or Thunder?
Well, I was about to say that any time a team from Oklahoma comes to Dallas to play, I have some kind of urge to spend $15 on a fried Oreo and go look at some cows. But if that's the kind of things that Texans are consuming outside of State Fair time, I'm not sure that I can really get behind that. So I thought it was going to be a close game anyway, with Luka probably putting up 35. I think he still might. But Oklahoma City wins this one 115 to 111.
Claus, do you have a thought on Mr. Rice? Apparently some undraftable news came out about the Kansas City wide receiver. You got the Photog nightclub situation. You've got the wreck in Dallas situation. And apparently he's a good shot with an empty car, or somebody in his party was in college.
Well, I wouldn't know anything about having tremendously skilled players get in a lot of trouble during a dynastic run. That's just not something I'm accustomed to. But I do have a friend, a man on the inside. Let me put you guys on speaker here. All right, so, sir, your name is Red, and you were there at the Dallas County Jail when Rashee Rice came in. What were your impressions?
Well, I didn't think much of Rashee Rice the first time I laid eyes on him. The first night is the toughest, no doubt about it. They march you in naked as the day you're born, fresh from a Bible reading, skin burning and half blind from that delousing crap they throw at you. Someone always breaks down crying. The question is, who's it going to be? I lost 2 packs of cigarettes on Rashee Rice that first night.
So I'm to understand that you've made acquaintances with him. You've done some favors for him.
Well, there's a con like me in every jail in America, I guess. I'm the guy who can get it for you. Cigarettes, a bag of reefer if you're partial, a bottle of brandy to celebrate your teammate's girlfriend releasing a 31-song album that nobody particularly likes.
Claus, hang on. We're up against it. We'll continue your inside man. Hang on a minute. Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on a Friday weekend edition. Back with you tomorrow, 7:45 with Hail Varsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. Claus is with us on some commentary with his friend Red on Rashee Rice, the chief wide receiver. Claus continues. Sorry we had to interrupt.
Well, that's all right. I understand Red's going to have to get back here in a second, but during the break he was telling me a story. Now, Red, as I understand, the fellows that are in the county jail with Rashee, you guys have gotten some special perks, as I understand.
That's correct. And that's how it came to pass that on the second to last day of the job, the convict crew that tarred the plate factory roof in the spring of 24 wound up sitting in a row at 10 o'clock in the morning, drinking icy cold Boulevard and Cornhead Lager, courtesy of the hardest screw that ever walked in turn at the Dallas County Jail.
But you were saying that they played some music, as I understand. Rashee broke into the announcer's booth?
That's correct. Rashee broke into the announcer's booth and started playing all the diss tracks from Kendrick Lamar and Drake. I have no idea to this day what them boys were singing about. Truth is, I don't want to know. Some things are best left unsaid. I like to think they were rapping about something beautiful. Can't be expressed in words. It makes your heart ache because of it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get busy living or get busy dying.
All right. Thank you very much, Red. So there you have it from the Dallas County Jail. Yet another skilled receiver falling victim to a life of crime.
Wow, Claus.
This is going in the Hail Varsity Radio Hall of Fame. This is
pretty good.
This is amazing.
Claus, it's nice that you bumped into your buddy Red.
Well, I can be everywhere and nowhere all at once, being imaginary and wearing red. Frankly, I just hope that Rashee understands that he needs to be more scared of Big Red than he does of his cellmate Red. So if he gets back to Kansas City, there are probably going to be some problems.
Do we know, is Chief Saholic also down there with him right now?
Well, I think they probably want a little bit more security than that. Probably not like a member of the Sisters, where he spent the rest of his days in a minimum security hospital drinking his meals through a straw. So that's not the type of thing that they want in just a county jail.
Claus, we will let you be. You're incredible. We will check in with you next week, all right?
Okay.
There he goes. He's imaginary. He wears red, the infamous Clausburn. We got some picks in, but we also had Claus's buddy Red as a correspondent. That was well done.
I don't know how to put words on that. That was incredible. Full disclosure here. I didn't know that was what we were going to get today. We had some idea.
Yeah, a little bit.
No idea it was going to be that. That was beautiful.
It was awesome. You'll get a 7:48 start tomorrow morning. See ya.